Can the next panel please take their seats? Mr. Davlos. Mr. Davlos.
Okay. So we're going to go on, continue with the next segment. I'm here with Mr. Jurgen Rigterink. He's the Vice President of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD is mostly referred to. I speak in English since I have a German next to me, and we're going to speak in English. He's here, and obviously he has an idea of investments in Greece, things that can be done in Greece. In this idea is the theme of the whole forum is the challenge of inclusive growth. He can make an introduction for himself, however, and let's see if we're going to have questions from my part and questions, if there is time, from the audience.
What do you want to know?
First of all, let's hear something about you, let's say. What are you doing? How do you see your position towards Greece?
Okay, maybe a few words about myself. I'm actually fairly new to EBRD. I am only there since 11 months. So I'm not so sure if I'm the eminence grise on EBRD. I actually worked 20 years on the darker side of banking, and I found myself at the end of 2008 or middle 2008 as CEO of ABN AMRO Bank in Greece. In Kazakhstan. I think the last 1.5 days, Greece is in my head. And as you all know, ABN AMRO Bank has been taken over by RBS at that point in time. And actually, to be honest, I didn't like the mission, I didn't like the vision, I didn't like the strategy, but most important, I didn't like the culture of RBS. And that actually for me was the trigger to go into development banking. And what is better than to go to a Dutch bank called FMO, and actually where I can combine banking with impact. About 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I became CEO of FMO, and then it's very strange that you actually leave. And actually you only leave if there's really something better. And that better was EBRD. And if you want, I can tell you a few things why I think we are so unique. But
obviously I won't. Consider my idea, or at least the forum's idea, of how EBRD can be useful in general, but towards Greece in particular.
Yeah, for the people who do not know EBRD, EBRD is in a way quite unique amongst development banks and IFIs. We're probably the only bank who do have a political mandate. We actually have very high up in our agenda. We actually would like to make countries or contribute towards making countries more democratic. And actually it's quite nice to be in probably the cradle of democracy here in Greece. So that is for us a very important thing. Number two, we are commercial. We want to be additional to the banking sector. But we also, although we are focused on the private sector, we also are unique in the fact that we work with governments, with sovereigns, but only if we attach to that some kind of a reform agenda, that we talk about policy reforms with the government.
From what I read concerning EBRD, you are green, let's say. You want to invest in green economy. You do not invest it has to have an ecological view. However, in Greece, things are not very well in this part. We have many times from European Union, we have problems concerning, let's say, landfills, etc. How can EBRD help Greece?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not everything we do actually has to be green. We every year we invest roughly about 9 to 10 billion of our own money, and of that we want to make sure that 1/3, actually this year closer to 40%, indeed has a green component. But our first and foremost, we want to make sure that we help a economy like Greece make the transition towards more a market economy. And actually here, and you asked me what we can do in Greece, for the last 1.5 days I had quite some discussions with your banks, with your entrepreneurs, and actually it's very rare that in one country the two themes come up so clearly. One, that is, I think, helping your banks strengthen themselves, particularly the NPLs. I think it's still a big deterrent for your banks to actually finally finance SMEs. And then second, and this is more related to your question, we feel we can step up here to the plate on the renewable energies side. We had a meeting this morning again with your minister on that one. We set up a 300 million renewable energy framework. So these are the two main areas we think we can contribute here.
Are you proud for something that you have done already?
Ooh. It's always difficult to be proud yourself on things you've been doing, so actually it's much nicer that other people are saying that we have done a great job. But probably since we are here, since we started about 3-4 years ago, probably two things come really to my mind, and that is we really played a very important role in stabilizing your banks, the whole banking industry. We actually took quite a lot, a few hundred million in equity to stabilize that. And actually the other one, and I already alluded to that, is we played a role on the renewable energy framework.
I'm not going to hide, yesterday we had a discussion, and you said something to me that really struck me, and maybe we should say it again, that this year concerning investments is somehow lost in Greece. And I would like you to analyze it, please, a little bit. Because, why I said that? Because everybody says that Greece needs new investments, and we are not going very well on this part.
It's always interesting when you have an off-the-record conversation with a journalist. Of course, that journalist does bring up these same things. But
I'm not going to hide. I'm going to say to everybody that.
But fair enough, indeed. I mean, when you're far away, and actually when the Greek crisis hit, I was in the Netherlands. You all read the stories about Greece, and you think you actually know it quite well. Actually, 6 months ago, when I came for the first time within my new job to Athens, actually I was not prepared for what I saw. Actually, I was quite shocked, because if you see with your own eyes that in the capital of a well-advanced economy, that you see crumbling infrastructure, that you see shops boarded up, that's quite shocking indeed. And for that, you need more growth than the 2% or so which we're currently seeing. And actually, if I may, I have one colleague here, Olga, and she's sitting there, and she's very young, and she's with us, I think, since about 4 years or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that she had to come to London, she's from Greece, she studied here. The fact that she had to come to London, and she's now our media advisor for Greece and social media. Actually, it's great for us, but it's a loss for you. And we have, I think, 400,000 or 500,000 Olgas all over the world, young people who actually don't find a job here. So I think, yes, this 2%, 2.3%, as we believe, it's probably not enough to actually get the economy growing again and make sure that the next generation doesn't live here anymore. So, and when I said it's a lost year, actually, to be honest, I think you can be pretty proud of what your government has been doing the last few years. It's really remarkable. I mean, we really now, the fundament has been set. But of course, the foreign direct investments are just not enough yet. And let's face it, foreign investors will first wait till the Greek entrepreneurs first invest themselves, but then also would like to see what's going to happen with a new election, either in May or October, November. So in that respect, yes, I feel this is probably not the year when we see growth taking off.
However, and that's the last thing that I will ask, since there are news, yesterday Greece was upgraded from Moody's, about 2 points from B3 to B1. However, we are still far away from investment grade. And the government said that since we have this upgrade, we're going to introduce a new 10-year bond, which right now has 3.6. Do you think it's sustainable? Do you think it's something that can work at this moment?
It's indeed true. I mean, yesterday, another recognition from another rating agency that actually Greece is on the right way. Last year, you did a successful, this year actually, beginning of the year, successful 5-year transaction. I think it's not necessarily that the government needs the money from the market. I think for us, from working with at the bank, we like to see that the capital markets are being developed more and more. And for that, you do need to have a benchmark issue like the government is possibly planning. So this is a 10-year issue. That also out of that, you can price instruments off, you can price instruments like hedging instruments. It also is for us a reference rate. So actually there are many, many reasons why the government should go ahead with a capital markets transaction like that.
Okay. I think we are, do you like to have something that you have in mind that you have to add? We have 1 minute if you want to use it, otherwise.
Well, actually you said if we're done, you would like to ask the audience if they have 1 or 2 questions. So let's do that. Let's make it a little bit more interactive.
Much perfect, much better. Is there anyone who wants?
Yes, the gentleman there.
Please, thank you.
Not too difficult questions, of course. Huh?
I don't know whether you can answer it or not. My name is Khagani. I'm coming from Iran. And the EU has told us that European Bank is going to stay in the business with Iran. And now Greece and Iran, if you compare them together, they are sitting on the same boat. Greece in another problems, now inflation due to recent sanctions in Iran has gone to 300%. We are in a very difficult situation. But if business between Iran and EU carries on, so that will be a different environment. Would your bank be interested in that?
The question here is not if we're interested or not, but we indeed European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, but we are a multinational. We actually have we have 70 shareholders, 68 countries and 2 institutions. And actually we can only operate in countries which, in our countries of operations, which are actually members. And Iran is currently not a member. So by definition, we are not allowed to invest in Iran. I know that's the easy answer out, but this is the case. Maybe one last question, if we may. If not?
Well, I thought that this globalized question from Iran was a good opportunity in order to. Okay.
For example, in Iran, free economic zones like Chabahar, which India has invested heavily, and even has been exempted from sanctions. Perhaps your bank could also consider that for infrastructure projects. You cannot ignore Iran in global economy equations. Iran stands in a very geo-energy, geo-transportation, geo-economic zone between Caspian and Persian Gulf, and 7 seas, perhaps.
I really like your pushiness, but the question is, I mean, it shouldn't be addressed to me. I'm just not allowed to work in Iran, and it has nothing to do with the sanctions. We're also not allowed to work in India or in Mexico or in anywhere else because that's not part of our countries of operation. Sorry.
Okay, I would like to thank Mr. Jurgen Rigterink. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you also for attending. Have a nice afternoon.